That's a whole business. I talked to our That's why I like seeing kids there. I know that. I wouldn't want to do that. It's too pure. This is static.
Not impressed. She brought cookies last night. It's too nice.
This month's got nostalgia.
I'm thinking it's the regular meeting. So that's
Ready to roll? Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Morrisville's Borough Hall. We're called to order the agenda meeting of Morrisville Borough Council. It's October 8th, 2019. If you'll all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence first. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And if we could have a roll call, please.
Here.
Oh, I'm sorry, she called, said she was not feeling well, so she wouldn't be here. Yes.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here. I have those folders.
Okay, thank you.
You want me to do the?
Yes, if you would, please, Scott.
Just as an announcement, council will hold a brief executive session later in the meeting at approximately 8 o'clock to discuss legal and personnel matters.
And the ASME? Of that part? Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time, we will do some presentations. The first one is from Gilmore and Associates. It's their other engineers. Ken is here. Hi, Elizabeth. And they will be here to talk about the WalkWorks Active Transportation Plan. Thank you.
Good evening.
Hi.
Hi, Madam President, members of council. For the record, my name is Kent Baird, and I am with Gilmore and Associates. I am the community planner for Gilmore, and at your disposal, as part of the municipal engineering package that you have with us, you're offered the opportunity to work with myself and with Liz Rosenkrantz, our junior planner. And for tonight, very simply, we put together a recap summary of the work that we've just completed with you and with your committee to develop an active transportation plan. And as some of you participated and contributed to that plan, the active transportation plan is something a little bit different than you might think first off. You might imagine a train or a car or a bus in the name of it, but it's really a plan that is meant to get your community more active. And so the grant funding that you received is especially developed for Pennsylvanians getting healthier. So they want people to get out and get more active and walk and bike and use their strollers and their rollers and their wheelchairs, which means making improvements to your entire community to make it more usable by your residents and visitors. So some of the things that jump out immediately, your residents really have an affinity for the Levee Trail. They have a great affinity for the canal and the towpath and getting out and walking with friends. But what we found when we did our study, and with the committee in some cases doing walkability assessments with Liz, there's lots of place to make improvements. Not just sidewalks where there's gaps, but crosswalks and curb ramps. And we start to think about other people who have differing abilities. And we start to make note of the fact that there's a great deal we have to do to make it a more active community. In our research, we found that your community actually commutes more than almost any other community in our region. So all of you as a populace of employed people are leaving town and hopping in your cars. So when you get home, you really will benefit from a little bit more exercise. And I mean that, from the bottom of my heart, I sympathize. But what we did is we prepared this plan with you with a list of recommendations that go on and on. As you saw in that summary that we handed to you, miles and miles of loop trails for walking and feeling a sense of completion when you're done doing that walk. Signage and lighting that people have been thinking about for years but didn't have a place to put that thought. So we had a public meeting, and we had in this room with the power out, right? We all met here and we fought through the storm.
It was by candlelight, Kevin.
It was literally by candlelight and survival blankets. We've actually, we've nicknamed now the East Coast Greenway director who came to this meeting in that storm on his bike. We've given him the nickname Thunder Cane because it was thunder and a hurricane, and he still made it.
Yes, he did.
And he really is a
On
big
time, too.
Yeah, it took a while. He was drenched. But then, of course, National Night Out was an exciting time for us. And for planners, we spent a lot of our time writing about your community and thinking about these great things that might come. But to actually hear from your residents how much they want these changes. Any of the changes that we recommend in this plan are developed out of the discussions with you and with your public. So we know, for all intents and purposes, you've got the approval to move forward on all of them if you want to, right? So whatever that cost might be. But in the final document that you've reviewed, we can attest to the fact that they're well thought out, and any of the improvements that you might make are all grant fundable. All of this is meant to get you to the next level, and a variety of grant sources are out there, and grant agencies are ready to hear your application. The program that we received the funding from is now on the review team for some of the other grants, so they love the plan, and they can't wait to see you pursue something.
That's nice.
Yeah. With that, if you have any questions for myself or for Liz, we enjoyed doing the plan, and we hope you carry it forward with some action.
Just to refresh council's memory, we do have a draft of and have for several weeks, a draft of the plan available on your Dropbox. And just today, we received the last final edit version, so we'll be taking the draft off and putting the final on your drop boxes, so you'll have plenty of time to review it prior to the meeting on the 21st.
Does anybody have any questions for what's been done so far? I think we've seen most of you, so.
Yeah. I'll just have a comment. It was a lot of fun working with both of you. You definitely know your job, and you could explain everything as we were moving along. It was nice to take those walks in person, to actually go out there and see some of those sites. It was enjoyable, and to see what those possibilities of connecting all those walking trails together. And I was there National Night Out, and I have to say, you had a lot of people at that table. They were real excited to be able to put their input on that. So that was a good thing, because we, like I said, during that little storm, it was kind of tough. People weren't leaving their house during that storm, so
Right.
You didn't have a big show for that. But they definitely were there for National Night Out and giving their opinion on it. So that was really nice to see. And I thank you both for your work with us. It was fun working with you on the project. So.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for all your hard work. And I know in talking to both you and Liz, it was very heartfelt work that went into doing this. You love your job, and it's apparent in what you do. And I think it's apparent in, the writing of this report. And I can't wait till the community can read it. And hopefully we can get some grants and get things moving.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it definitely will be nice to see some of this put together and put it into the works down the road. So we look forward to working with you guys in the future on implementing some of these things. So thank you very much.
We've got a hard copy too. We're going to leave it to you before
Oh,
we go.
very good. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks very much. Okay, our next presentation will also be with Gilmore Association. This one is for the CDBG program change for 2020. And we have Kurt and Alora here to speak about that.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
You guys all know me.
I know, we saw you earlier today.
So I handed out a list of CDBG grant applications that we want to look at for next year. We had a meeting with them last week just to kind of revisit some of the procedures that we need to follow for going forward with our next awarded grant that we got for historic summer seat accessibility improvements phase 2. But in that discussion, we brought up what's next. What are the next projects we want to pursue?
Laura, do me a favor, pull the mic out, will you, and use it just up here. We're having a hard time hearing you with
Okay.
the air on. You can
hear
pull,
me?
you can take it out, it's wireless.
Okay.
Oh, there you
There you
go.
go.
I'm short, so that helps. So yeah, we just had a meeting with her last week and went through some potential projects. And obviously, Patriots Park is something that we discussed as a possibility of getting funding with them. And it is a possibility, but it is something that we'd most likely need matching funds with either DCED, the Growing Greener, or not Growing Greener, Greenways Trails, and RACP was another one that came to mind.
I haven't had a chance to inform council of the date change with the timeline with CDBG.
Yeah,
A couple of them might be up here wondering why we're talking about CDBG
already,
now.
right.
It's usually a spring occurrence. Allura is going to tell you that the county is getting a head start and they've adjusted their normal timeline. So they're opening the application period, we believe, in December.
Yes,
So applications will probably be due sometime in January or by February 1 sometime. So this is months ahead of when you're usually having to consider
even think
this.
about, yeah.
And how much will we be going after
I mean, it varies from project to project,
for Patriots Park specifically?
as much as we can.
Good point. But do we have I guess what I'm asking is, do we have a concept of the level that we need to get this to completion?
We will, yeah. I mean, we're vigorously working on the design currently.
Yep.
So we'll have a better gauge of how much the actual cost will be for construction.
Okay.
Do we have any idea how much the matching funds will require?
CDBG has no matching fund requirement.
Yeah.
Say zero?
Yep.
Right.
Awesome.
Well, yeah, we have internal and soft costs with the engineers that will be the borough's
Yeah.
responsibility, but no direct matching funds are required.
What would those soft costs be?
No idea. They'll have to come up with an estimate of that when they come up with an estimate of how much to apply for.
Construction.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So that's our number one project that we have on our list. And then we have the ongoing ADA ramps when we do paving. If we do go through a crosswalk, the borough is obligated to upgrade those curb ramps. So that's part of, an ongoing thing as we're paving more roads. We need to keep up to date with any of the curb ramps that are required. So this one's on our list. So we're not using up all the liquid fuels funding for curb ramps. We can utilize and maximize that funding amount towards paving roads.
Right, okay.
Second or third one is Manor Park. You guys are probably familiar with that park not being in very good condition.
Right.
So that would be a good one to go after. And CDBG said they do like doing parks, just not ones within like floodplains and that kind of
Right.
thing. So that's why they were kind of hesitant about the phase 2 for Williamson Park.
Correct.
So, and the parking lot adjacent to that Manor Park, we would include and wrap that into the same project because that parking lot looks like it's in need of repair.
That little park gets a lot of use. It's actually a really favorite little park. We talked about that during the Walkworks presentation about that as you were utilizing all the areas in the town. And people would definitely love to have that redone if we could get that.
Now, would the fenced-in area next to the parking, next to the playground set, that's, I guess it used to be like a skate park or something, would that be part of that project?
Is that what you're talking about?
Well, we would have to make a decision when
Yeah.
we scope out the application as to whether it would just include the existing playground, or would you enlarge the playground by including what is now the fenced-in cage area that serves no purpose other than to collect rainwater.
That's a lot of water.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have to see at the time what's best to do with that after it's looked into. Okay.
The levy. We all love this levy project, and we got funding for
Yes, we
phase
did.
2 of the accreditation. But there's annual inspections, there's maintenance that needs to be done. So our thought was, why don't we get some funding for just doing those repair work that needs to be done?
Do we have an idea, I mean, I know you guys have been out there, of what kind of scope of work would be needed to apply for as far as funding? Is
Right,
it-
we would have to look into that and
We would get a
kind of
list of whatever that is
a
would need
list, right.
repaired? Okay.
The next one still involves the levy, but for future accreditation, looking at the spillway or pump station, that would go along with accrediting the levy. That's big construction costs. Again, CDBG kind of mentioned, the levy as a project, so that's when we were like, oh, okay, well, we could definitely use the funding there as well, so.
Let me just ask you, maybe this is just me. With the Army Corps of Engineers, they're really big on the levies, and they come out and they check our levy. And when it comes to that, they also have their own kind of funding. Is it possible for them to, at any point, coordinate something with us on this? Because it's a big project, and that spillway would be part of the flooding thing.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up, because as Laura said, we did get the new funding to continue the accreditation process. And once we got that funding, we immediately contacted the consultant that we had been working with she's an expert in levies. I mean, honestly, she's statewide, maybe even nationally, she's one of the best. And we got pretty unfortunate, pretty surprising news from her that she's unable to continue to work with us on this. As shock to many of you that probably haven't heard this yet. So we were very devastated at first, not really knowing, okay, now what?
Yeah.
You know, she's had her head in this thing, and it's a setback to have to kind of redirect. But the silver lining, we hope, is the Army Corps has all the resources available as you could imagine. I mean, the Army Corps does unbelievable things. And we've been working with the Army Corps and some of their staff out of the section in Philadelphia. And very recently, with another client of ours, we became aware of funding that the Army Corps has. And what we're hoping to do, someone's getting back from vacation tomorrow, so I have a reminder to follow up tomorrow on this. We're hoping to see if the Army Corps can kind of pick up that ball and carry it. And who better to submit to FEMA a study than the Army Corps' letterhead on top of it? So we also think that we can use the money that we just got, $255. If you add the boroughs, 45, it's 300,000. We're sort of hoping that we can maybe kind of take that 45 we committed and maybe take it back and bring in that Army Corps money as the match. That puts 45 back in the borough's pockets. Scott's getting his eyes.
That's my preference.
And they'll actually do in-kind match. So for every dollar we give them, we have $255,000. They'll give us an equal amount of staff hours. So we can essentially double that money. And you say, well, geez, how much money do you need to get this thing accredited? We still don't know. As Laura said, we're talking about CDBG for some of these maintenance items. We know we have to do at least some of that. But we also strongly believe we're going to have to do, based on that preliminary work that Kim Dunn from T&M Associates had done, we think we're going to have to do a spillway above Calhoun Street. That's been talked about for years. That's sort of in the analysis becoming more and more of a yes, that has to happen. As well as a pump station for taking all the rain that's still going to land behind the levee in that bathtub and pump it up and out into the river when the river's high and it can't naturally drain out. So once we get determination of that defined scope, then we still have to design those particular items. It's going to take a lot of coordination with the canal folks, PennDOT, DEP, and it's all going to be part of that accreditation program. So 300 sounds like a lot of money, but it doesn't go that far when you look at the magnitude of what we're trying to accomplish in this overall accreditation program. So I'm going to leave that at that. We hope to give you more updates on that.
Okay.
But as that fits into the CDBG discussion, which is the heart of why we're here tonight, is get direction on where to move forward with CDBG. We have that listed as 5, even though the levy is a high priority, obviously, project for us. Because as Laura was saying, we don't know specifically what work needs to be done for that levee maintenance. The inspection Army Corps and DEP do identifies what needs to be done, but they say repair concrete. Well, we got to get out and figure out what's the extent of that concrete repair. What's the extent of that check valve repair? What condition are the pipes actually in? They say go inspect the pipes. Well, we got to get cameras up there to see. That's what we're doing as part of that accreditation thing. So we might suggest that number 5 levy one just kind of hang out for a little bit. Maybe we don't go after that one this year.
I think it's too early.
It's a little too early. But let's be thinking about that one for next year.
Maybe when phase 2 of the study is done.
Right.
Okay.
And if you recall, part of getting this levy accreditation program going, we had to find money just to get seed money to get that, right? We're always trying, you always need some kind of match. So you got to get that catalyst money to get things flowing. And what we've been doing in order to get some of that seed money is we took some money from the annual maintenance levy funding that the borough had set aside, and we sort of diverted into getting this levy accreditation program formally going. So this levy funding, if we went CDBG, it's a great way to use new money to then go back and do those deferred maintenance things. John's doing a great job trying to keep the levy intact, but cleaning off all the debris, cutting the
Right.
grass, all that stuff. But so I'm going to jump back now and let Laura pick it back up there with where we were on this list.
All right, thank you.
Before you jump back, can I ask a levy question?
Sure.
Is there any benefit to the Toll Bridge Commission in us getting the levy certified or doing improvements? And are the bridge abutments considered part of the levy?
They're the end caps, so they are part of it. I don't think that FEMA's too worried about either one as far as being part of the levy itself. But I want to make sure I understood your question. Are you asking what role the Toll Bridge Commission or what benefit they would have?
Is there any benefit for them where we could go and essentially say, hey, we're spending this money to accredit the levy. Your bridges essentially make up part of the levy. Would you be willing to pay a little?
Let's ask them. We have to
I
have
know
a
somebody that works there.
Right.
Doesn't hurt to ask, right?
It doesn't hurt to ask. If there's any work that they might have planned, maybe we can combine it. If you have to do waterside work, there might be a mutual benefit there.
Something,
I'll think about it because we always like to find excuses to ask other people for money.
Yeah,
And maybe they won't do money. Maybe they'll be like the Army Corps of Engineers and do something with time in
maintenance and.
Sure.
Yeah.
or maintenance, with hours.
Yeah, I mean, I can think of now that I'm thinking about it a little more. There is a pipe that runs underneath Bridge Street that goes through their jurisdiction. So maybe if the condition of that pipe, maybe technically there's an argument it's their pipe, so we can see if they'll kick in and cooperate. So something to think about. We'll get some thought.
Yeah, definitely.
Doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah,
So Kurt, the pump station, that's because of the low-lying area and on the island area for drainage?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so we think it's going to be where the canal spills down by William Street.
Right.
We think the pump station's probably going to end up somewhere in that low point.
Gotcha. All right. So that's
So-
where, it's backed up before and flooded there?
Yes.
You're talking on North Delmore and Maple?
from the canal.
Yes. Maple, yeah. That's
Yeah.
the street.
Okay.
So the idea would be, we want to try to stop the canal from jumping out of its banks at
Right.
that spillway, at that gate valve.
Right.
And we want to regulate that by going above Calhoun Street and having a fail-safe spillway. If
Which
water
is-
wants to come down
Which is
from
automatic.
Lower Makefield and
Right.
Yardley,
Right.
it just cascades out and we have the grade. The canal banks are higher than the levee
Right.
and the 100-year storm of the Delaware River, so we can get the water at that point back out into the river.
Right.
So it never gets behind the levee. And that way, that gate valve, we'll just make sure that DCNR keeps that thing welded shut. So
Right.
it's part of the O&M maintenance, operation maintenance of monitoring the levee.
Yeah.
That doesn't fall apart and go to disrepair or ever get modified or whatever.
I think I remember at one time too, after the river had reached flood stage, somebody had opened it.
That's how the story goes, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Compounding the problem. So we
Right.
want to make it so no human interface, that it's like welded shut. We got to, coordinate with the canal folks. It's a historic
Sure.
asset, so we can't
right.
just eliminate it. They're not going to look too kindly on that. But if we can somehow alter it so it can't be modified, then that might be the solution. But then no matter what we do to keep the canal from jumping the bank, we still have a watershed of the area behind the levee.
Right.
When it's raining, and the river can stay up for 3 days. We've seen that. So the river's up, it rains, water's coming down from, say, New York. The river comes down, it's up, and now we're getting rain behind the levee. Well, Well, that's going to start filling in the bathtub. So we want to find that low point, which is going to be there by Maple, and put a pump that's going to pump that water back up and over the levee. So we have some preliminary hydraulic numbers from Kim Dunn, from her assessment. And I think we were trying to apply for this next grant, so we're asking around, okay, we got this much flow rate. What size pump station we have to build? And our guys said, it's a funny story, sorry, I got to take a minute to tell it. They said, well, that's a big pump station. Let's see what that would cost for construction, because we can estimate what the engineering design costs based like a percentage, 15, 20% of construction costs. And we found almost an identical size pump station in Texas, and the construction costs were $40 million.
Whoa.
We're like, oh boy,
Yeah.
this is complicated things.
That's a lot of cheddar.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we're going to just forget about that estimate.
Yeah.
We're going to keep plugging along because I think we can find a solution here.
It's usually cheaper the second time around you build something.
And who knows, maybe they had to pump the water, it's Texas, it's a
Yeah,
big
yeah,
state.
pump
Maybe
it
they
over the
pump
state.
6 miles, we don't know. So
Out it goes.
Does the river being at flood stage, does that affect the water table level behind the levee? In other words, is there any possibility of the ground level water?
seeping through the levee, and that is a real thing. That is something that's part of this assessment.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that's been done as part of this preliminary levee accreditation study is we did geotechnical boring. So we physically, no one has records from when the levee was constructed, so we don't really have geotech reports for the soils that they used. We still have to finalize that report. We just did some borings to get some eyes on what is out there, but we still got to crunch some numbers and see. But I think that our guys looked at that preliminary data and they think it's built real good. So it's not going to be a very permeable material, so we're not going to get a lot of, but there still will be some assumptions as to contributing water that could come from that
Right.
as part of that pump station analysis.
Okay. Thank you.
Do we have any idea as to when the phase 2 would begin?
I mean,
At this point?
it's beginning. Did we get the agreement signed yet with, we don't want to start spending the money too quickly because they want signed grant agreements before you can start invoicing against that money. So we're working with DCD to get that executed. But we're already kind of vamping up here. It's starting. And like I said, we're trying to figure out if we can get Army Corps to really kind of be a heavy lift here. I've already spoken with the Congressman's office to try to get them to lean on the Army Corps. If they kind of shrug us off, we want to make sure that he's pushing. Talk to State Rep Perry Warren's office. He's aware of this. They're going to start pushing. Senator Santacere's aware of it. He's going to start pushing.
Okay.
So we're trying to circle the wagons and try to make sure that we can make good headway.
Good, very good.
So I think I should try to reassure council, just because there's a list in front of you with 6 suggested projects, we're not suggesting that we're going to do 6 CDBG applications. What are you thinking, 2?
Yeah, 2.
Maybe 3,
Right.
depending on the amounts of the applications we submit?
And we coordinate with Jessica from CDBG, so I can also run by her the lists that the top 3 or 4 that you guys want and say which ones of these are most plausible for us to apply for before we even go forward. And
Yeah.
Well, council, you're seeing these this list for the first time tonight. Do you want to give the borough engineer feedback tonight, or do you want to reflect on this and let us know at the meeting on the 21st?
Well, I'd like to know what, if we're going to be doing this in 2020, will we be having enough detail with regard to soft costs to include this in the 2020 budget?
Probably not until they do a scope of work come up with estimates of it and start on the application.
Okay, I'd like to have that information first before.
Well, that's the problem. I wouldn't come up with estimates on one of these 6 things if you're only going to suggest that we do 2 of them. You're just wasting dollars.
One of them, the ADA ramps we've applied for, so that one's like minimal cost.
Yeah, that's a recycled one if
Right.
council chooses to select that one.
Patriots Park is, yeah, for me, I'm just going to say we need to keep moving on that. That's
Right.
a top priority for the county. We heard that today.
The levy for me.
Cost estimate.
For me, I'd like until the next meeting to think it through, and all we're doing is giving feedback on what to
Right.
get more information on, I believe,
Yes,
correct?
because you don't want them to do a whole bunch of due diligence on
Right.
6 projects
Exactly.
if you're only going to recommend 2 of them. You're just wasting engineering dollars.
But I'd like to put a little thought into which ones we'd like more information on.
Okay, so by next meeting, then, we can decide which 2 we're going to move forward with?
Yeah, I guess if council can let me know at the meeting on the 21st, you guys won't be here anyway, but I can pass it on to you, which 3 of the 6 you would like the engineers to do a deep dive on and consider CDBG applications for, and then they can begin to frame out a scope of work and what the cost will be.
Yeah,
Okay.
Just kind of something to maybe chew on, think about, targets to aim for here. You know, my opinion is that with Patriots Park at Historic Summer Seat, we're using grant money now to design that park. Part of that includes cost estimation, and we're going to develop an engineer's opinion of probable cost. That's the beauty of getting so many grants rolling simultaneous. So we're actually doing some of the scoping due diligence for.
That's going to be paid for by the planning grant, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you just say how much to apply for CDBG, I mean, just the paperwork, it's a HUD program. Remember, I mean, these things, it's unbelievable how much paperwork. You know, Jessica, we met with her specifically to make sure that we're efficient in getting her what she needs so she can get HUD what they need. But
Yeah, remember, these are federal programs, federal dollars. There's a lot of,
unbelievable.
Yeah.
You wouldn't,
It's
you would still
overwhelming.
be impressed after I tell you how shocked you'd be.
Definitely,
But
yeah.
so it's about $5,000 tracking it to cost to apply just on all that legwork paperwork, assuming we don't have to do a whole lot of extra due diligence. And what we're saying is with Patriots Park, you won't have to do a lot of that due diligence. So figure that's about $5,000 to apply for soft costs. ADA ramps recycled. I mean, but still the paperwork and all the processing, and we're doing them so we can, you're going to get some economy of scale by doing multiple ones. A lot of the forms are identical, so it's quick save ases and, you know, you're flying through it. And then Manor Park, that one probably needs a little bit more scoping legwork. So let's say that's maybe, but we got examples. We got current costs.
Yep.
Figure that's about, you know, $5 to $6 grand also. So $5 to $6 grand for each of them is probably a good gauge for what your decision.
Before the next meeting, could you guys get us feedback from your folks and see what they feel is feasible from the CBDG? If you could,
think
you
that's-
said you would make a phone call to talk to them. If you could get us some feedback on that, that would be helpful too for the next meeting.
I think the top 3 listed here are the ones that will end up being because the other thing too is, you know, we don't know what the county's going to receive from other municipalities.
Yep.
It's very competitive.
They look at how much money can they spend by when too. That's part of their decision making.
yeah, a lot of it is how quickly can you execute it?
So if they call us up and say, can you design and bid those curb ramps in the next 6 weeks? Yes, we can. All right. You know, that helps.
Yeah.
So give them options. Submit the 3. What's the return on investment right now for the grants? We were at like 6 to 1.
Yeah, I think it was $7.80.
$7.80 for every dollar out of the boroughs.
Wow.
And it's up to what after we got the FEMA? Or are you saying it went from 6 up to $7.80?
I didn't look at both years,
Oh.
but this current year was $7.80.
But this year, so far this year, it's $7.80 for every dollar you spent out of pocket.
Well, we just got $600,000 in commitments in the past 30 days.
Yeah, exactly,
So
exactly.
Yeah, we have.
we should have that every 30 days. No pressure.
Can't lose,
Yeah.
especially on CDBGs where there's no match.
Right.
Well, council, sorry to disappoint, but I know last year in the mix, we had Phase 2 of the Williamson Park Playground. And in fact, one of you contacted me recently about this, Mr. Nay, not to put you on the spot, but I think it might have been you. But CDBG and the county have basically suggested to us that we not waste an application, find another source for Phase 2 of Williamson Park because of the compliance and due diligence difficulty with dealing with federal money and what's essentially still a floodplain. Now, if the levy reaccreditation could eventually change that equation, but at least at this point, we don't consider that to be a feasible project, at least not for CDBG funding, perhaps something else.
So they want to wait till the levy's accredited before they'll do any more?
Yes, so their suggestion was either find another funding source that's less rigid or wait until the levy is reaccredited
And if I
consider
could,
a Phase 2 playground application.
before we move on, and I spoke to Laura this morning about this, and this isn't to put you guys on the spot. I just want to keep it in the forefront. The Melvin Avenue Basin, we still have the grant money for that. We still need to work on the matching money for that to make sure that we can get that done because it's a hugely important project to dozens and dozens of homeowners in that area that are still dealing with, and we're getting out of that season, but still dealing with mosquitoes and with news of Triple E coming out, not necessarily in our area, but in the surrounding area. It's getting more and more important to make sure we handle that.
Going back to Williamson Park for a minute, Mr. Mitchell, how much funding do we need for Phase 2?
What do we estimate Phase 2 at in last year's application round? I don't have
I don't either.
our 2019 applications with me. Yeah, for Phase 2 of the playground, wasn't it 200,000?
I thought it was a little more than that. I thought it was 255. Yeah, it was more than 2.
Okay,
Yeah.
It was more than 2, I remember.
okay, thanks.
It actually would be on your last monthly report from the borough engineer would show what it was. I thought it was 200 and change.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Unless someone else has anything else they'd like to ask the engineers on this. So we will take and look this over, and Scott will get back to you, give us a little time, and if you can give us some more information, that would be great to help us along with those decisions. We appreciate you coming out for this and also being at Patriots Park today. That was a fun day. Thank you.
Well, Elora is sticking around for 9D as well.
Indeed. Oh, okay. Got it. All right. Since we're not voting on that, would you like to just bring that up so she can?
Yeah, do you mind?
Do you
That
want
way
to-
they don't have to.
Okay, since, oh,
9D.
thank you very much. We're not voting on these things tonight, so I'm just going to bring it up since Laura will be able to speak on this. You're going to see on the action items that you will be voting on next week is a motion to reapprove Habitat for Humanity development plans to be re-recorded with the County of Bucks and to accept the requisite O&M agreements. So you could probably explain that.
This is, long ago, this development was approved.
Okay.
There were some minor changes, so the plans have to be reapproved, refiled, and go ahead, you take it away.
Yeah, so basically the plans were kind of changed during the process of this Habitat for Humanity project, and the stormwater design was changed, and there was an easement that was on 2 of the lots. It was like a shared easement. So now that the plans have been changed, it's amended soils, and they don't need this easement. So re-recording it basically takes off that easement being allotted for those 2 properties, and needs to be re-recorded.
Okay.
Was the change like a direct drain to, or do you know what the change was?
So I think it was like a seepage bed as
Okay.
the stormwater design. Now it's amended soils.
Can you explain what that is? I guess that's what went over my head.
That's over my head too, because I'm not the one that reviewed the
enough.
stormwater design.
Okay, curtain there.
Yeah,
Bring in the big
basically,
guns.
in the process of this project getting built, the site was to be raised up higher to allow for some grade to get water to go to seepage beds. And what that is a hole in the ground filled with stone. Water goes into the ground.
Like a French drain.
An alternative stormwater management system, best management practices, amended soil. So you basically take lousy soil and you modify it so that it functions better to soak up water, get it back into the ground, replicate the conditions of what was there as far as runoff characteristics before you built new roofs that water runs off faster. So this will slow it back down, keep it on site. I guess the crux of this whole thing was the former plan had a bunch of easements that were shared between two lot owners for where these seepage beds were going to go down the property line. Well, now that that doesn't exist, these are brand new lots, brand new homes. It's really a disservice to these property owners to then, if they ever sell their home, say, oh, well, there's an easement that came up in title. What's the easement for? Oh, seepage beds. Well, what's a seepage bed for? Stormwater management. You go out there, it's not there. And now you're, married to your neighbor with this non-existent thing. It could create a huge problem for them when they go to sell their home
Down the
for
road.
settlement, because now you're battling with your neighbor over something that's not there. So, we talked to the Habitat guys. They've been very understanding. They, probably wish that they never got in this circumstance, but, they're muscling through this, working with the borough to clean it up. And we just wanted to make sure that instead of asking council and planning commission to sign new record plans and nobody says, what am I doing this for? We wanted to make sure that we had it in front of council. There's a motion to vote on it. That way, sign it, go replace what's been recorded and move forward.
Does this apply only to the 3 lots that are completed or all 4 building
Just
lots?
the 3. The 4th one was separate and
By itself.
by itself. It wasn't married, tied in with the 3rd.
I saw the latest that I saw earlier today came out from Habitat by email. Has the borough engineer reviewed that, approved it?
Plan that we had.
Okay. Are we going to have a set here for the meeting on the 21st or before?
Yeah. Let's get,
I looked at it and tried to print, but it's on big paper and,
yeah, well, we can have them submit.
Copy of like that plan that we got today. Is that what you're
Okay.
looking for?
Yeah, just make sure we get a full and complete set here in case council members want to see it prior to the meeting, their vote on the 21st, or if any member of the public does for that matter. If you could have one dropped off, that'd be good.
We can do that.
So we can make it available if anyone wants to look at it.
And the house locations didn't change on the lots. The driveways didn't change, so they're lower. The houses are lower than what they were proposed to be,
It's the
but
ones that are on,
All right.
Lafayette?
Well, thanks for explaining that so we would know what that was. 'Cause
Appreciate it.
I read it myself and said, oh, what is that? So, okay, thank you.
What
Thank you
is
very much.
O&M short for?
Operation and maintenance.
yeah, so basically, it's a new way. If you build these seepage beds or have these amended soils, it's an actual, feature that is put in to meet the stormwater ordinance. What the operation and maintenance agreement does and what the associated plan does is it binds the property owner legally to, you can't just go and remove to make more yard. You got to keep it there. If they did remove it, it gives the municipality teeth to go in and enforce it
Right,
and lien their homes and, require them to put it back in.
got it. Okay.
Does anyone from council think you'll have any more questions about this at the meeting on the 21st? Do you want them here or?
I'm good.
Or not? Okay.
Well, I-
I think someone from Habitat is actually planning on being at the meeting on the 21st, so I guess they could address it as well.
Yeah, we wanted to try to limit, because Habitat pays for this
Right,
for our time, through an escrow. So we want to try to keep our costs down for them as
okay.
best we can.
Well, thanks for explaining that so we understand what that is. Anyone have any other questions for this? Okay, thanks so much for staying and answering those questions for us. Okay. At this time, then, we will move on to public comment. Danielle will time it, and if you could please keep your remarks to 3 minutes, we'd appreciate that. The first one on the list is Kurt Holt-Hendricks. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Kurt Holt-Hendricks, is this on? Kurt Holt-Hendricks, 300 Melvin Court North. I'm speaking for my wife tonight. She wanted to come. 60 straight weeks of chemo doesn't always let you get out of the house, doesn't make you feel so good. She has a new idea, and she asked me to read a letter for you. It was submitted. I brought it up to you, and I think Scott got an email from her about this. This is her letter. Dear Morrisville Borough Council, my apologies for not being able to present this in person, and my appreciation to my husband for attending on my behalf. I'm interested in producing a Celtic-themed event in the spring of 2020 in Morrisville's Williamson Park. My vision for this event is fairly simple. Music, some dancers, food, vendors, bagpipes, gotta have bagpipes. I am looking at a time slot of perhaps 1 to 5 p.m., a day of family fun before the sun goes down, as I know March weather can be iffy. I will likely secure an alternative venue in the event the weather is extreme as well. In addition, I propose to have a beer tent, which I know will require a special consideration from council, and as well as a day use permit from the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board. I'm asking that council put this up for discussion at your next regular business meeting so that I may know how to proceed. In the event that this is approved by council, I understand it will be contingent on providing the PLCB license, proper security, and insurance, and I'm happy to furnish whatever is determined to be required by council prior to the event. I'm tentatively scheduling this event named Sham Rock the Park for March 14th, 2020, from 1 to 5 Williamson Park, with an inclement weather option of either alternative venue or as a rain date. I'm not requesting borough funds towards this event, but I'm open to working with the rec board or any other committees or persons who would like to help. Questions can be addressed to me at jenholt24@gmail.com. I thank you for your consideration, and once again, apologize for not being in attendance to present this concept. Kind regards, Jen Holt-Hendricks. That's basically it.
Thank you.
Just more ideas, more things to get people in the borough, to get the town involved, use the park. We had a great event. The rec board put together that food truck event, and let's just keep building days, giving people reasons to come out, enjoy our town. So if you have any questions, I can answer them best I can, or you can email them to Jen. But that was a letter.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the list is Hussam Jalad. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, Hussam Jalad, 45 Ridge Ave. I just wanted to thank you with the progress regarding the party house. Unfortunately, wasn't enough to deter the violation as they continue.
Right.
I'm just learning now that there's new hookup to what was it called? The hot tub. So that's just last night. Yeah, go figure. So just, I've spoke with you before the meeting started. I maybe updating some of the folks that would be watching that they couldn't make it tonight on what's your plans to proceed, the next steps. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Oh, and I have one more question. Just for curiosity, I probably should know this. Those motions that listed on here,
Do you have a number on it? So I know which one?
just like in general, all of them, is this information I can look up and like to know more about the subject that you're gonna adopt? Or like, for example, the Halloween policy, what is that?
I can give you a copy of it if you'd like.
I mean, are they online
It
somewhere?
will be. Yeah, we
Okay.
post all this stuff online.
Before the vote?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
it's a standard one that we do, but I do have a copy if you'd like. You can have my copy. 'Cause I
Just
can
in
get-
generally speaking, I wasn't sure if those
Yeah,
motions.
since these are things that the council is working on, that's why this is a work session.
So they're not something we can look up to know what you're voting on yet, I guess.
Right.
Like what is the,
Yeah, like a lot of this is personnel stuff, so it's not up online because it's not voted on by the council yet.
Sure,
So
sure.
it won't be up there because
Okay.
it's all personnel. So that's
I'll
taken
just
to
email
exec
you on the
first.
specific ones if I'm,
Right,
interested. to
right.
learn more. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next is Jane Berger. You state your name and address for the record, please.
Jane Berger, 90 West Maple Avenue. This morning was a great event with the county commissioners and all the other county organizations with the borough over at Patriots Park at Summerseat. I know it was short notice, but I was glad that so many people would come. And I want to say Ted, but Mr. Parker, I know this has been a project near and dear, and you've been involved from the beginning. And I know if you didn't work 2.5 hours away, you were there in spirit. So I just want to mention people know that you weren't able to be there because of your job, but you wanted to. So it's another step forward in moving this project along. I'm sure the residents around there, that's a lot for their, not only for their property values, but just for the quality of life. So every step forward on Patriots' part is acknowledgement. And seeing the concept plan every time I can, I put the plug in. A few azaleas throughout the park would be nice. We have the perfect soil in Morrisville for azaleas, and then they add cover. I was at the Planning Commission last night, and they did a resolution which put basically the Stockham building, which is 4 lots that we learned, and the parking lot behind it into the plan, and I'm having a brain freeze of the official name for that plan. And I thought that, he said, one, it doesn't change the zoning, but it puts those parcels into the downtown something plan.
The town center plan.
Town center plan, right. And it was my understanding that that would be something that you were going to be asked to vote on tonight, and then it has to go to the county commissioners, or?
No.
Next week we'll vote.
No.
So it doesn't have to be tonight,
It was approved by the Morrisville Borough Planning Commission.
Last night, right?
It goes to the Bucks County Planning Commission at their November meeting. There will be a public hearing here in this room by the RDA and the borough jointly in December. Borough Council will have to consider it, as will the county commissioners in December.
Okay, thank you. The process wasn't really clear, so I just want to know, make sure that we're not missing any steps. And I have a question on 911 regarding the C1, the district provisions.
You mean 9H?
I'm sorry, 9H. Could you just explain that a little bit? Is that a definition of C1? Because I didn't think you were changing the area, or you were?
At the time, yeah, we can either do it now, or we're going to go over these with the council, so the manager will go over
but that'll
it.
be for the Monday night meeting. So when you
Right,
go over
not
tonight,
tonight.
you can do that. So there's nothing you have to do tonight regarding the downtown plan.
No, not tonight. We're
that's
just
good.
discussing it.
And finally, really quickly, the levy, the flood control. I'm really glad those in higher authority, other level of government, finally see the need to put the spillway on the other side of East Trenton Avenue. We've been talking about since before, and really seriously after the flood of 2005 and 2006, because putting the water back into the river, as was explained, really would alleviate a lot of the issues coming further down the canal. And if they want to certainly do something with the spillway on the lower side with a pump, so we don't have to put 3 emergency pumps with hoses across that road up over the levee into the river. That would be wonderful, but I'm hoping this spillway on the northern side would alleviate that problem, as is opening up the railroad culvert area, so that doesn't block the canal and stop the flow of things coming. So that's been a long time in coming, and that certainly is a priority. That will certainly be a benefit, because it was that problem when it overflowed the spillway and couldn't go into the river, which sent the water down Delmore Avenue and made Williamson Park a pond, and we lost the pool. So I just want to say 3 cheers. Let's keep this moving for that other spillway.
Thank you. Thank you. I will close public comment at this time.
Madam President, can I make just one brief comment?
Sure.
When Scott said it was the town center redevelopment plan, that was actually done in 2006. So it's not some plan that nobody's heard of. Well, it may be, but
Right.
it's nothing we've done recently. It's been sitting around for,
Yeah, it's just, we're actually, the stock and building is just being included in that, which it wasn't before. So that's why that meeting was for last night, to incorporate that into that boundary, which I believe is coming up on one of the discussions tonight.
Oh, you want me to do it now? No, no. Do you want me to talk about the
Do you want to do them one at a
zoning
I'm sorry.
issue? The 9H?
Do you want to do them all in order, or?
Oh, yeah. No,
Okay,
it's
want to do it that way? Okay. All right. We'll just quickly go through some of these things. The approval of the minutes, everyone should have gotten these ones for August 19th, September 10th, and September 16th. Please look them over. If you have any questions about them or see anything that's wrong with them, please let the administration know so they can be corrected. Next would be our finance. You got your treasurer's report, and your bills will be coming out this week, so please also look them over. If you see anything that you need to question, please do contact the office about that. So also.
You won't get your meeting packet till the
Till-
following week, because there's a week in between.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm lost with my map. Sorry about that. Thank you. I forgot myself. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Don't show up Monday.
Yeah,
by
yeah,
accident.
sorry. 2-week span, I forgot. We have, I think, 3 times a year that happens where we got a 2-week span before the actual meeting, so I apologize. Of course, the mayor's not here, but I will open the floor for our chief, who requested time to speak about our IA directive.
Good evening, council.
Good evening.
At the next meeting, you're going to be asked to approve 2 new directives for the police department. The part-time policy that you put together is very good. The internal affairs directive, on the other hand, is not good. And let me just start that the internal affairs directive we have now in place has been here for 5 years and has been very effective and it has worked very well. We've had no issues with it. There's no reason for a wholesale change in this policy. Department's policy is in line with all other departments in Bucks County. I ask you, where are we coming up with this new policy that council now assigns an investigator? You only find that in a very few departments where Mr. Gerber has had his hands in. As much as I like Mr. Gerber, his idea of borough council is that they have more power than the mayor. That is not for his opinion, but more or less for the legislative body in Harrisburg to change the laws of borough government. He has come to you and asked you to change this directive. Mr. Gerber spoke to the Bucks County Chiefs of Police a few weeks ago. He received a very, very cold reaction by the 35 chiefs that was there about his idea about the internal affairs directive. And he talked about giving council the power to have the ability to assign the investigator. That's not good. We need a clean break between the investigations and the prosecution. The investigations should be given to the chief without said, unless the allegations are against the chief. That's a different story. But the chief should be the person investigating these complaints, like we have been for the last 5 years. Not one other department in the county has a policy like this. I ask you, the policy committee, to go back to the table, talk to Tellytown, talk to Langhorne Borough, talk to Bristol Borough, find out what their policy is, and find out it's not the way you guys are writing it now. There has to be a clean distinction between prosecution and investigation. With that being said, there's 2 parts that need to be changed in this. Section 6, Part A, number 5, where it says, this form must be completed by the complainant and returned to the chief. You can't put must. If you have an anonymous complaint, you're not filling out the form. So if they are willing to fill out a form, then that's okay. But you can't put must, because then that eliminates all anonymous complaints, or someone comes to the window and says, hey, chief, Officer so-and-so did X, Y, and Z. Well, if you don't fill out my form here, I can't investigate it. That's not true. Okay, so that has to be eliminated and or changed to a different wording. And then Section 6, Part A, number 10, subsection A. It should read, in my opinion, the council will be notified of the investigation, and the investigation will be completed by the chief unless the complaint is against the chief, at which time the mayor and the council will decide who will investigate it. So please consider what other boroughs in the county are doing. There's only one borough that Mr. Gerber was able to tell me has taken this under their consideration, and that is South Coatesville. Population of very little, more cows than there are people. Okay, he's the only person, and I spoke to that chief, and I gave him some synopsises, and he shook his head and said, that's a good point. That's the only borough I can find that has done this. I don't see a reason to change the way this is done. So please consider that, take that back to the policy committee and redo this policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Chief, can I ask why you waited till now to tell us this when this draft policy was sent out a few weeks ago and you were copied on it?
Because according to some of your people, I'm not supposed to communicate with.
Okay, well, you could have went through the mayor, who could have sent it to us then.
Which was your request?
What?
To go through the mayor for things like this.
Okay, well, I wasn't invited to the policy committee. That's number one. I told you in the back room that I was against it, if everybody remembers.
I'm sorry, how does that have to do with you responding to an email you were copied on?
Because I'm not supposed to go back to the policy committee.
Okay, and the mayor was on that email as well.
Get into this.
Appropriate.
You're supposed to do your due diligence and look at other policies and not just listen to one person, which you did, Mr. Gerber, as to what his interpretation.
I'm sorry, but who did you recommend we bring in and review your policies?
Excuse me.
No, I'm on the board here. You are a subordinate.
I'm talking.
Point of order,
finish
Council
speaking?
President. This is getting out of hand.
I told you, I like Mr. Gerber.
Okay, and you wanted him to review your policies, right?
I disagree with the way he interprets borough law.
Okay, and are you an attorney?
I disagree with him, but I just look at what is around our community, and I look at what the other boroughs have done. And that's all I ask you to do is review other departments' policies of how this is done. That is the due diligence of a policy committee.
All right, thank you, Chief. We hired Gerber to assist us with this. He's a labor attorney, and that's what we're going with those recommendations for. Council will take consideration on any of the stuff as we will be having an executive session tonight. And if this needs to be brought up again, the labor attorney will be here, Cheryl Brown. Okay, we'll go over the action items right now. Some of them here. 9A, everyone knows we have the standard Halloween policy that I will read at the meeting. You all got copies of that. I don't think anyone has a question unless they think there should be a change on anything with that Halloween policy. 9B is a motion to acknowledge the receipt of the $46,114.21 from PennDOT Audit General, and it's the money for the Volunteer Firefighters Relief Association. Any questions on any of that motion? We went over the Walkworks plan with the engineer tonight. I don't think anyone has anything else to say about that.
I mentioned it earlier, but it bears repeating. We will take the draft version off of your Dropbox and endeavor to put the final version on. So,
which you just received, correct? Okay. 9D we spoke about tonight. We will deal with that. Habitat will be here in case there's any more questions at the meeting. Chief brought up the adoption of the new internal affairs policy for the police department. Like I said, the attorney Our labor attorney will be here tonight. You can ask those questions of her if you have anything more you want to ask about that.
Yeah, and if I could,
Okay.
I just received E&F from Labor Council today.
Okay,
So because not all of council, I don't think,
Right.
has seen
that's why, yeah, correct.
these policies yet.
Yeah.
They're just proposed.
Right,
So they'll be in your delivery on Friday.
okay. All right,
In our email today.
I
Today?
think that was just the policy committee and the.
yeah, I don't
mayor
think
and
it was the
chief.
one from the attorney.
Okay.
Not that I saw anyway, unless I didn't catch it today.
All right.
Same thing, you'll be getting, like the manager said, 9F, you'll be getting a copy of the policy for the part-time police officers as well. 9G
Yeah,
is
that-
for the ASME contract. That would be also brought up in executive session for everyone to be brought up to date with those negotiations and where they are. So that, I don't think we have the copy of that yet with the
No.
changes yet. That's
No,
coming?
after tonight's exec session, we will have a draft
Okay.
out to you before the meeting on the 21st.
Okay, so you can ask your questions when in exec session about that tonight. 9H, we talked about a little bit. The Planning Commission did have their meeting last night, and what this pertains to is the Stockton building, correct, or no? Yes,
No, 9H
9H
actually
is-
has been floating around for years. This
Oh.
goes back to the MEDI study that the Bucks County Planning Commission did in conjunction with the borough a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay,
You might
mistaken.
remember Mike Rodig from the Bucks County Planning Commission.
Okay.
Was here numerous times. There were public meetings about
Mm-hmm.
it. This is about amending the C1 zoning district
Mm-hmm.
provisions to redefine and sharpen up some of the definitions in C1. And that's going to be, of course, per our Planning Commission and the Bucks County Planning Commission. Bits and pieces of this have been circulated to you over the last few months. And I think we're going to have it now in final form, along with an exhibit, a map from the Bucks County Planning Commission on your Dropbox, hopefully this week.
I was gonna say, we'll get
I just
that.
received it today.
Okay, so I was going to say, because I know we didn't get anything updated, so this will come before our meeting to review that.
Correct. Yeah, this has nothing to do with the Stockholm Building or the redevelopment authority, although,
Okay.
no,
That's coming later.
that property is within the
Right.
district, so.
That's why I was questioning, yeah, if it had anything to do with that. Okay, the next one is the call for motion to approve the annual contribution to the senior center. I think everyone knows what that is, so there really isn't anything to change with that. So at this time, we will be going into an executive session. Our labor attorney is here tonight. So we will move into the back room for that first, and then we will resume our meeting. So we will now go into executive session at 8:09.
Solicitor, your solicitor list tonight. It's a Jewish holiday, so the solicitor is not with us this evening.
This is something every year. This is called, there's what we call orange. Outside of the goes on the fire. In and out. I can see the paper, yeah, I can see what that was. I'd like to.
Yeah, I saw them working on it.
Yeah. But this is the budget. Since I was here, Jane Berger. I live on West Maple Avenue. I'm also on the third board.
So you're on Maple Avenue?
West Maple. West Maple. There's Trenton Avenue, the shopping center, and then there's Maple.
Okay.
East Maple, behind the shopping center. I'm on the West Maple.
Okay, so he just bought another house.
Yeah, but it's something else.
You know
She sold
that,
it,
right?
yeah, because her mother was watching the state down there, she would move here, she could move over here. She doesn't want to. Oh, I know, that's a concern. I know you got everything followed up, but the last thing you do is have something.
Right. Well, if you
And
sell,
stuff,
if
it's
you.
wrong, it has to be documented.
Yeah.
There's gonna be another house and not that, that he had to get people there, and the lady went right with it, right? And he sold them.
No, I thought he set the fire, was fire. He went-
Fire, no, I think he stole the money from.
I know he went to jail for fire.
But the thing he does here is, it's a big house. Bed and breakfast is allowed, because we're an R two. So you can't do breakfast,
Well.
which is not Airbnb.
It's not Airbnb, but you still need to provide. It used to be, it has to be included on that breakfast. There's any company cost, so people can make cost. Or it has to be a no effective.
The house, or bed and breakfast.
It has to be approved, it
It has to be approved. The
inspected.
first one is 2 rooms, and we do.
Yeah.
And the third floor is 2 bedrooms. The second one is 2 bedrooms and a bath. And the second bath is off the kitchen. So you're there in bed and breakfast, you could take the bathroom. You're gonna go down for everybody having breakfast.
I don't think it matters, but.
It doesn't matter to me, no. That's where
It's not fair for people actually to say, you know, and, really, it's not fair for everyone.
I mean, I get a big picture, you pay yourself, and push it.
No, he's you have 19 in the basement. That's just there.
Now, the issue is they have a pool, he has a pool. Every Saturday. So, well, it's always a party, and okay, you rent it. But why do we have this?
Not just that, not just that, when he's running this as a business, he just makes his money from it, he makes his payments. What I'm saying is.
Well, apparently, it's everywhere. There's a trouble hearing, he's there. Yeah.
No, it's fooling everybody. I think we should not be afraid that we're gonna, we start ourselves fulfilling with them. If we are
Just have to keep on.
if they're afraid to be, not to win the case.
Well, they're not afraid, they're not afraid.
Not to win, that's it.
But the thing is, when you're going into court, you wouldn't on the best case possible. Everything you do, you got documentation.
Yes, but you need to sign it to your
That's all you have to do, because we're gonna be watching it.
You know, but as a lawyer, you have to, you know, and I feel like that it's there, it's really there, and I think.
Learning, having problems.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not just us, all right?
Yeah, but I feel like if we're not dealing with that, the more time it goes by without being dealt with, the bigger. He had the room, people were saying, his wife was on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, a week, almost anymore. Didn't matter. Didn't matter. This is the cost of key that he has. And he's not.
I'll be right back.
You don't need to.
On exchange.
Yeah. No, you
Then you get one running, I mean, that's just one fact.
But the fact that, this is why I spoke with the lawyer.
Yeah, we're not, yeah, exactly.
Because I was like putting the case for him. fact that I can go right in front of the judge, under the impression, that should be evidence right there. I don't think we need. Yeah, I can go right in front of the judge. If the judge needs an evidence, I can tell him, you know what, I can go right now in front of you, rent a room. That's, should be right there.
Laws are promised people.
Well, you know, again, this is, it ties back to the chief, and I think he's doing a great job, and, you know, that's one area, that you know, code enforcement, police, those are the areas we need,
He's the only one who actually.
Yeah.
And he's in that position where he has, we talk every week.
And I mean, you got the point of the news, we got the news about it.
Yeah.
And it's just a shame that we have to get these. But
Yeah.
And the problem is, I was
then you got
I
people
was,
in houses and.
I was saying to Scott and Debbie that this sets a precedent for not necessarily about this individual, others. You know, because
A lot of nice houses.
this is a precedent for them as a borough.
Look at these, if they're going out. And if they take on the floor, you say, "Hey, go ahead, it's kind of cheaper." So you keep finding money. No, we're not gonna
Yeah,
go.
we're not going away, we're not
No,
going
no,
away.
not us going.
I wanted to bring up something, but I don't want to eat.
Well, we need everybody to.
So you're hiding cookies downstairs?
A lot of.
Okay. Oh, jeez.
No, kids to private school, they take the bus, I mean, they don't take the bus, actually, private. And you can go to Texas, and I have to deal with this now, like, really, you gotta, this problem, you know?
And it's, you know, it's like, really, it's just.
Putting our heart
And
and
then
soul.
it should, it had, in time, to just fight and stuff. Things had to be dealt with. Previous guy was a nice guy, but he was doing
Who's
things
the
very
previous
well.
guy?
Previous guy was a nice guy. He was
Yeah.
doing things very well.
Oh.
But, the man, when he came in,
I thought they were releasing something like fires.
the council never knew what was going on, that was going up for sale.
Daisy Stairs.
It was after the garbage bought it, that you got the
That was
neighborhood
very
got
interesting.
out of
Remember
it.
the first?
And then they knew those
First
records,
fire.
that we never thought about, maybe the research, and they saw how we got about it, but it wasn't so.
But in the new code, companies, I think the problem is we need people that, doesn't matter the part-time or part-time, this part, but we need people that invested. And, you know, unfortunately, I was.
You know, hiring somebody to work in public works, you have to
Thank you, sir, John.
have experience.
Thanks.
In those zoning and all that
So,
stuff as well.
maybe I need to understand, who's the code enforcement?
Keystone.
Yeah, but who's the person?
They have three, you have Steve that does zoning, you've got building code, you've got.
Who's building?
UCC. Violations.
No, but who, is there a person?
Yes, there is a person. I personally don't know all the three.
Okay.
They work for the company.
They work for the
I
company,
understand, but I
right.
wanted to
And
know.
you
about
look
these
at, you
ones.
look at the invoice, well, Steve's the main guy, he did the last one, so he's the main
Go
guy.
there, so it says, hey.
Shouldn't really come started that much.
I tried calling Keystone.
But they have somebody who goes to UCC inspections, which I thought was to do that. They know the violations of inspections.
So,
And they
Steve,
deal with the zoning laws and zoning violations. Zoning violations, Steve.
I know Steve, I just didn't know how the guy, that's all.
So I know the.
But they work with the company, so they come back so many hours, hours. One person.
No, I understand, that's why I was asking what Steve does, because he's the guy that.
People might deserve zoning. There's always somebody that does zoning.
Oh.
Is the sound.
Sounded
Oh, thank you.
Jesus.
Well, Mr. Later, you know the sound is still on out here? Why don't we turn the sound off?
You're killing me, John.
It's going out.
Entertaining others out there.
Well,
I appreciate it.
Yeah, but I mean, we're all working really hard.
Nobody's going like that.
I have no
I can go all day long. I can talk a little like I know.
Back on when it comes back up. Okay, well, I'll turn it on, turn it off. You can sit there.
But I got them at like the round bag chips, whatever they're called. I call them bag chips. Brown crispy. Yeah, you have pretzels, you have a couple, you have two different checks. This one doesn't have peanuts, but I think it's all peanuts savory. I was told not to show you the regular cheese. Virginia likes the regular cheese. I got these fake cheese. My kids love
Both going way back, yeah.
No, that's mine.
Concept.
Oh, we talk about that.
That the three of them have done something.
big amusement park out there, like high. Ones, and then we can have more than just one drivers or maybe go right through or just have it. Yeah, it's supposed to be like super big. There. And then going back and forth, waste money. Back out, then they have nothing to do with it. Then they have to themselves, and that's fair. Yeah, I don't think it's fair. So it said, I don't think she had a partner last year, but then she got. Did sort of kick them out, like saying, now if we go and say no, I mean, it's just. I don't think you want to take off that much time. I'm still wanted. Sometimes my have to be there. At the beginning, it's the first 2 weeks. Yeah. So. Last year. Right. I know. Yeah, I know. See that? I said I wanted to try to take the heat off the budget, the finance budget meeting for that. If that doesn't go over, I want to take off that Friday. If it goes over, I have to be there. I'll probably take the day of Thanksgiving, and then I'll still roll over fine. But if you want to do something at the end of this thing, this is what I'd like. On this game trip, but you know what I mean? If you want to do this, that's where I'm going to spend about $1,000. But no one and I have the same shoe size. We'll go with 11s. So 11 and a half. Mine shoes are almost 2 sizes. Yeah, you knew you wanted to do that. 2 sizes. If I'm at 11, you go up to a 13. As for snowboards, it's still strapping in. It doesn't matter how big it is. He likes to ski better, but he said he's still willing to try. I don't care.
I work in central office.
Well, I used to ski, then I got to snowboard. They're about 20, so I went skiing for work. Yeah, geez, they fill. One day, I don't think he knew I was the buddy. He never said there. And I turned around, and he's like, oh my God, I'm still going to toss him in this finance position. No, he was taking this position. I was never spoke up like that. I was here, like, he was one of the. What's the difference between finance and finance? Oh, you don't put that name on it? He goes, I know. So you had these cards already made? How come I'm just getting them? All right.
All right, we're at it. All right, yeah, don't spend more money here.
Well, not many days, not calendar days. So what are you planning? You trying to do something? Oh, so you're trying to save it for them? So kind of no problem. More sick days, you get like 12 sick days, vacation. Yeah. Then you burn from it. Whatever. I already used all the person now, so I'm not saying that it's a problem. I just didn't know. Yeah, I didn't know which one was which.
External stuff.
So after that, it's $1,000 is not, $4,000 is not too much of your salary. Refill, come pick them up. I'm like, I'm getting that 25.
Down on this side is home.
Yeah, no, like I can read up to here, and what's the rest of school?
I worked in Alexandria.
I think it's just working on the stairs.
Area. They still use the same roads and it's.
try to get a full day, spa day at the nice spa. Virginia, the guy that gets that new name. Newtown, we used to give the whole day. That's what they were thinking, depending on how many. I think she's enjoyed it. I don't know how many she will. For a meal, like, you know. Yeah, it's gonna do the best ever. The thing was 30, you figure half from the president has. The MMA have the same. With her DMR and MRS. DMRS? That is nice, I was just curious. We're pulling all the boroughs and all the monies right together. Yeah. Bethany is doing. There's a lot of beaches with the name. Number for sanitation costs. Well, I think I can do that. No. One or the other. It's either going just a general fund route or on the cost, I like to put it all in. My gray suede shoes. I have to wait because I'm afraid it's going to rain. You're going to wait till it starts getting. This one group of doing deals going on. About the residents, told the troops to come in at 5 o'clock in the morning and fire them. Fired them because it's the team they gave me. I don't think he was going to be active this week.
One and it broke.
Need a bigger bag.
Yeah.
Thank you.
See ya.
Have a good evening. That's where they are. And I'm sure it's beautiful, but it's a place that you need to go back. Go with me to that.
exercise and rules. You're telling me the jam.
Hey, John. If you wanted an exec session for a while, it's intended.
Seven of us here.
Just don't see the baby.
You know what? I can't figure it. It's like a PDF or something, or? I'll try again tomorrow.
I'd say 2.
Let me run downstairs. No, wait.
It's not in me anymore.
Just email it to me, because I'm gonna have to email it to myself so I can read it on a big screen.
Okay. Okay, there it is.
Because I end up having to forward it, because I can't read it on this, and I can read it on my
Well, not
monitor.
really timely, but I just,
Yeah.
I didn't want to, I know that, you know, I was waiting for slides and
Yeah. Also, limit how many those things.
That doesn't say much for me. I mean, I was better on technology.
Well, you're honest about it, that's just,
Sure matters.
we're not voting on anything, right? We're not voting on anything.
All right, okay.
What a liar.
10 minutes if your clock is broken.
What are you doing? He's not going to talk, is he?
We are back from an executive session. The time is now 8:55. Thank you for your patience for being here. There will be no voting after this, so I'm just going to move in if there's anything under borough officials, if anyone wants to say anything at this time.
Oh, actually, sorry. We are in the middle of Morrisville Restaurant Week, so please go out and enjoy. All the menus have been posted on the Facebook page, and everything looks delicious, so please enjoy. Thank you.
Okay. I'll just say real quick, we did have that meeting at Summer Seat for the trees that was being planted. I will apologize to council. It was really a last-minute decision that we were contacted about Bucks Beautiful doing the trees and that grant. But of course, we're not turning down anything we get. So it wasn't like we had a lot to prepare for when they came in. And we were actually waiting for their official news press release. We couldn't do it because it was actually their event. So I apologize to anyone. We couldn't get any information fast enough. Scott's, that's why he literally sent an email on Sunday because I said, can we say something? Is it on? Is it off? And he literally, you saw when we got that, was their press release was on Monday. So that part I apologize for. But we all threw it together real quick, and we're thankful for Bucks Beautiful for doing that. That's a nice little addition to the park. So I just wanted to let everyone know that didn't get there, and thank all the council that was able to make it and the mayor. It's nice to see that project moving along the way it is. So, anyone else?
Can I just add something?
Sure.
If I could just add for the record, council held a brief executive session to discuss personnel matters, legal matters, and labor matters.
Oh, thank you. I forgot about that. Thank you very much. Okay. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are over at 8:57.
Somebody has the button.